Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone, where we look at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Hi, and welcome back to Modern Musings. I'm your hostess today, Cindy Murray, and we're back again today with my co-hosts, Kristen Murray and Amber Jones.
Hello.
Hello.
And we also have, again, our special guest, John Griffith.
Hello.
Hello.
And as you may recall, John was here last week talking to us about his new comic book, Lucky Man, about his prostate cancer experience. And today he is with us to talk about publishing. And as an author, John has published 3 books now. Is that correct?
Well, three under my name and then 4 as a ghostwriter.
Okay, good deal. And so we figure John has some good experience, and we'd like to talk to him about publishing for yourself and some of those experiences.
Yeah.
So are all of the things you've done self-published, or have you worked with a publisher before?
The ghostwriter books were all published.
Okay.
So I kind of have a little bit of experience, and I thought a lot about this on the way over. Self-publishing is not easy.
Yeah. Some people think it's easier, but you're assuming a lot of the burden.
Yeah. I mean, you do. And for me, it was a matter of impatience, right? Because you shop your book around, if you want to shop your book around, you may not get a response for 6 months to a year.
Right.
And for me, I finished my book and I'm like, I want it done, So I then decided to self-publish my very first one. And my second one, which I gave you there, that children's book, the third one, the comic book, and the others, and the experience was very different. But for me, I have some advice to offer people that are going down the self-publishing route that was not available to me online anywhere. There's a lot of helpful information like templates and, this color, schemes that you have to have in your books and, the indentions and things like that.
Right.
But there's a lot of stuff missing that I learned, significantly. So I would say, as an author, the first thing I would focus on is finishing the work.
Right.
If you get hung up in, okay, this has got to come down halfway on the first page and there's a title here and I got to have numbers, If you get hung up on that stuff, it's a different kind of brain. It's, when it doesn't really work.
Right.
So you just really, like the old authors used to do with a typewriter, just hammer through the text, right?
Right.
And that's the first thing I would say is finish the piece.
Well, and I think that's a lot of writers' first
That's what I tell
is
my students, my college students. They need to finish it.
Get that first
Get it
draft out.
finished. Yeah, get it out.
That's funny because I do a lot of PowerPoint presentations and Excel spreadsheets. And if you get caught in the formatting before you put the data in, you are going to be reformatting.
A lot of people get caught in that.
They
like
do.
A lot of.
I'm guilty of it. I know it. I
formatting is very rewarding, right? It makes you feel,
oh yeah,
it looks
Looks
pretty,
nice.
right?
Yeah.
But that's the problem is you just don't want to do that up front, So I'm glad that we all kind of, from different angles have that same experience, right? And the other thing that I've learned, this is kind of funny, is the title. So if the title is an important part of your book, right? Like,
Yeah.
you need to really nail that down and kind of know what it is and research it, because books have a lot of metadata and all this online stuff that at the end, when you're finished, you fill out these things and search engines can find them, etc. Title's an important piece too, right? Oftentimes in nonfiction, you'll see a title and a subtitle, right? And in fiction, you'll see just a title like Fahrenheit 451, Well, that's a very integral part of the book.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In nonfiction stuff, because it has like the first book that you mentioned, A Dad's Fun Guide to Raising Happy Daughters.
Yes.
Imagine activities against zombie and naysayers and other foes of happiness, right? So you kind of communicates what this book is about, right? A dad raising daughters and how to get them to defeat the enemies of happiness in society, right?
Right.
Get it. Fahrenheit 451, not necessary, right? It's Ray Bradbury. You're going to read that book. And so you got to think about it because originally, for example, my comic book that I wrote originally, instead of Lucky Man, was violated because cancer made me feel really violated.
Right.
Well, when I went to violated.com, just to kind of check it out, the amount of porn that popped up on my screen.
Oh, I'm sure. I
couldn't shut it down fast enough. And so you got to really think about that stuff, and I would definitely research your title if it's really important to the content.
Right.
Before you start writing it around
Right.
wrapping a story around that title.
People judge a book by its title too.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cover,
So
title.
violated,
Yeah.
definitely took me to the wrong place, man. It was, God,
Oh, I'm sure.
it was
I'm
embarrassing.
sure.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh my Lord. And
It has very, very different connotations when you take it that way.
yeah.
Right.
So, you got to think through that. And maybe that happens before you write your story or your book, because if you're wrapping it around that title, you'll have to go back and edit it quite a bit. So
Right.
that was a big lesson for me. So, research that, I would say, a little bit up front. Now, in the self-publishing world, you are responsible for pretty much everything, right? The indexing at the end of the book, if it's, a book that is indexed. I didn't do that. I've hired somebody to do that. There's lots of great
I
resources.
noticed that in your after notes. Yeah.
Copyright, I had to think about, all right, I'm quoting a book that's about 2,000 years old, but it was translated about 20 years ago. I have to do a copy, ancient Chinese book, right? Translated to English, and I use that translation. Well, that's copyrighted. So I had to get permission for those kinds of things to use from their publisher.
Right.
Other works that are in their natural format and they're old, they are not copyrighted, So you just have to kind of jump through some of those hoops, but it's not daunting. I'm just saying it's things you have to think about.
Right. Right.
But you can do it at the end. Again, as you said, get the text done, get it finished. No publisher is going to deny you the right to quote an author, that they published a translation or a book for.
Yeah, because they want other people to go, "Ooh, I
Oh,
want
I
to
want
read
to
that."
read that book now. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely, of course. So, don't worry about that. Just know that you're going to have to face that. Artwork is, there's a lot of websites that gives you royalty free. They say royalty free. You pay them a small fee
Right.
to use images. And in my first book, I had little images, like almost sketches at the top of each chapter and a cover, which was done by some Russian guy. So they allow you to get some really nice artwork for really cheap. And there's lots of sites like that if you just search, for that. And then, like I said, copyright and things like that. And then distribution, that's on you too. You self-publish a book, who's going to sell it, right?
Right.
So it's on Amazon. I use kdp.amazon.com, and I did ebook and both formats. But then I went to Barnes and Noble, and gave them a copy, and they liked it, and so it showed up on their shelves, and
Okay.
I sent stuff to other book stores, and they put it up too. But you have to do that kind of stuff, It's not, nobody's going to do it
So
for
did you have to get those books printed for Barnes and Noble?
No,
Like the print on
no.
demand, or?
So they're able to order. So on every book there's a barcode called an ISBN. You have to buy that too. And so when they look up the book, in their system, they'll find it. if it's got that number attached to it, and they just order a dozen copies, or 2 dozen, whatever. And I did a book signing there. Spotlight author of the year or whatever it was, and they ordered like 30 or 40 copies, and they all sold out really fast. And so they're able just to go reorder as they need to.
Mm-hmm.
Writing books is not a endeavor that makes you a lot of money.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it makes you feel good,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So I may get $1 a book.
Mhm. Okay.
I don't care.
Okay.
Mine was an act of love, or all of them have been that.
You had something to say, and
And I wanted,
Yeah.
like all of you, I was thinking about this on the way over. You're all dedicated to making the world a little bit better,
right. Yeah.
right? And that was my motivation. It wasn't to make money or be a New York Times bestseller or whatever. It was to speak something important to me,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was about cancer, men's health, raising daughters as a dad, which was, when I raised 3 of them, mostly as a single dad, so, and it was not really popular at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I go to schools
Yeah.
and they would say, "Well, where's mom?" And I was like, "What?"
You're looking at him. Yeah.
And so, so I wanted to get that message out to dads that, man, moms are no more equipped to raise children than dads,
Right.
in a way, right? None of us are, right?
You learn as you go.
You
right?
learn
Yeah.
with the first one, and then the second one comes along. It's like,
Oh, you got to relearn
you
some.
got
of
to
it.
relearn, because none of that works except how to change diapers and
Yeah.
whatever, So all of my books are kind of in that mode of trying to make the world better, just like you with this
Right.
podcast.
Who I as I was reading the How to Raise Happy Daughters, I wanted to ask you about who your intended audience was for that, because throughout the book you address letters to your daughters,
Yeah.
but then it feels like you're really kind of addressing the dads too. So,
Yeah, it was a book meant to be shared.
Right.
So I'm going to read you the story about Michelangelo and how he was stealing corpses or buying corpses, to cut them open and figure out how the human body's put together, which is why his sculptures are so amazing, right?
Right.
But very illegal and very probably sentenced to death if the Catholic Church knew he was doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and he was doing it right in their basement, But so it's a little bit of these stories, and then a letter explaining what's the lesson for me, daughter, to tell
Right.
you, right? So in that example, fly under the radar sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be openly broadcasting your intentions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it'll lead to your downfall. So, it was really meant to be a book that, first of all, talks about my upbringing in a family of 4 boys. So you'd think I have no training with women, right? And then all of a sudden having daughters, and
Right.
one after the other, 3 of them. And so it's, immediately takes away the, maybe the insecurity that I'm not sure I can do this,
Right.
Yeah. And then puts the stress on how important it is, that you do this.
Right.
And whether that's with your wife or a partner or by yourself,
Right.
you've got to be involved. And so that was kind of the whole intent of that story.
Good. Yeah. I like I said, I loved the book. I loved the lessons. I loved all the little activities at the end, the father-daughter activities. There are a lot of the things that we talk about on the
Yeah.
podcast. So
They're very sweet.
yeah. And so one of the things that I noted that you said in there was in the introduction, you talked about, you said you only have complete control of your thoughts and feelings, but that's okay. It just so happens that the most powerful force available to us is our thoughts. And to me, that sounds a lot like the law of attraction, which is something we talk about. The more positive you are, the more positivity you will
Mhm.
bring to yourself. The more negative you are, the more
Mhm.
negativity you will bring to yourself. Um, is that kind of where you were going with that?
Well,
And
it definitely is aligned with the law of attraction thinking for sure, but it's ancient wisdom.
yes.
It's you know,
Well,
and
the law of attraction supposedly comes
Yeah.
from that
I
ancient
I mean,
thinking. So,
the
yeah.
Bible says, as a man thinks, so goes his life.
Right,
You know,
right.
so this is, but you can see it. I mean, no, is this okay to say a bad word on this show sometimes?
Um,
Like,
I
okay,
yeah.
Yeah,
nobody's going to get their butt whipped. I'm not
There
going to
you
say
go.
it.
There you go.
Nobody's going to get their butt whipped by a bully unless they're sitting there under the tree, afraid they're going to
Right.
get their butt whipped.
Right.
Right? You
Mhm.
go in with confidence and believing in yourself. It's not going to happen. Right? Nobody's going to get perpetually sick over and over and over throughout their life unless they think that's their life.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I got cancer. Your husband had cancer and fell to it, and but it doesn't mean I'm a victim to that over and over again.
Right.
Nor was he. It just kind of came
Right.
late.
Yeah.
And again, that kind of goes back to the male ego. But um, you know, but there are people that that are constantly sick, right?
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
they think that way, right?
Right.
So I'm a big believer
Well,
in the law of
I
attraction.
credit my positive thinking and my positive outlook on my own cancer survival story. So, and as we've talked about on the podcast many times, I've been through a lot in the last 10 years or so. And I don't think I would have come through any of that if I had succumbed to that
Yeah.
negative
If
thinking.
you
Yeah.
arrived at every situation angry or victim mentality.
that victim
Victim,
mentality.
that's
exactly.
it. That's it
Yeah.
right there. The abused
Yeah.
person, the abused wife, whatever. I can't say it categorically. It's true for everyone, but you can attract that kind of person to yourself. Those kinds of friends,
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of spouses. And I'm a huge believer in that. And I went through some stuff, a lot of stuff too. And I did an interview the other day. They asked me what motivates you more than anything else, and I said adversity.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes me stronger,
Yeah.
and better.
Mm-hmm.
And so same thing you just said about yourself, and don't know you two as well, but I'm assuming that everybody's got that kind of story, or you wouldn't be sitting here trying to make this world a little bit better.
Right.
Right.
Right. You'd be
Talking
sitting there
through it. Yeah.
looking for some attention
Yeah.
in a sad way,
How has that? I mean, obviously that mentality has affected your writing because of the. It's reflected in the things that you write, because you're turning those adversities into something positive. How did it help you in getting your books published? In working your way through all of that?
I would work on that first book, all of them actually, hours every day. I'd stay up so late, and because I was just so driven. I was so driven to tell this story.
Mm-hmm.
Not my story, but help others change their story.
Right.
That's what I was driven for. And so that just motivated me to push and push and push. And also it's probably why I was impatient and didn't want to go, I'd shop some publishers, but it would be like, okay, a year, I'm not going to wait for that,
Right.
And so I don't know. It's just like if your motive or what motivates you is sincere,
Mm-hmm.
everything kind of takes care of itself, everything else kind of comes. If your motive is to be greedy and make money or, something, it just doesn't seem to work out. Right.
Mhm.
Or
Right.
to trick something or, I don't know. But for me anyway, it was easy for me to just push on and push on because that adversity changed me so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm not the only one that's going through those things. And I wanted to be a voice, to help others like that. So even self-publishing, going down that route and going through all that stuff. And learning all that I did was still part of that whole process. It was exciting to me.
So did you have a lot of naysayers and, negative thinkers that
Huh.
tried to convince you that you couldn't write a book or?
Well, not specifically, because going back to what I said a moment ago, I kind of fly under the radar. I don't tell a lot of people
Oh,
what I'm doing. But I think in general, society as a whole, as we get older, I think when we're born, we have this can-do spirit, this believing anything is possible,
invincible, yeah.
invincible, right? It's exactly what I wrote. Um, we'll live forever, nothing can stop us, right?
Mm.
And then as we get older, and it's usually like middle school, junior high, society kind of starts working against you, and you start putting your less faith in yourself and more faith in what others think about you.
mhm.
Social media has really taken it to a new level,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so that book, all my books really, kind of reflect that, those foes of happiness. Those are the foes of happiness, And when you get to high school, it gets really bad, and then suddenly you don't believe in yourself anymore and you believe what somebody else tells you you are. And so, I don't want the world to be, I don't want my children to grow up putting faith in others,
Mhm.
getting, looking in the mirror and thinking they're not the right size or shape or whatever,
Right.
I want them to love themselves, and we all need to love ourselves. And law of attraction, what you referred to, is loving yourself and
Yeah.
attracting that kind of like-minded people,
Right.
Yeah.
Believing that you deserve all that abundance that you
Honestly,
get.
I think a lot of it stems, you're talking about that first time you really like start living in that fear mentality that, oh, I might fail, other people are going to judge me. It's that fear of rejection.
Mhm.
And it just
Yeah.
takes that one time that you can't get past that fear of rejection. And then you start living in fear of rejection. And then you move on, high school, college, your early adulthood. You don't believe that you can have the career that you want because
Yeah. You see,
somewhere down the
Mhm.
line you believe that you didn't deserve it or
or you'll be doing all kinds of things to satisfy another person,
yeah.
sexual or whatever that is, because you're looking for that.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and as the country song says, looking for love in all the wrong places.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's what goes on. And so we change. And I don't, there's not any one thing that does it, but I think society in general does it,
Mhm.
Aesop even wrote about it in his fables,
Yeah.
with the, I forgot what's called, the boy, the ass, and the man or something. But anyway, this guy kept changing what he was doing because people kept judging him and
Mhm.
judging him and judging him, and finally it ended up disastrous for him. But it's an age old problem.
Yeah. You can't please everybody.
Yeah,
You just have to please
please
yourself,
yourself.
as the song goes. Also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
but that's really true. But that's the war we face. You know, and I think unfortunately for girls, it's harder. Uh,
I think it's harder in different. It's
in,
hard
di-
in different
different
ways.
ways,
In
yeah,
very different
yeah,
ways.
yeah. It's
There are
definitely
definitely
on the body,
expectations.
definitely on the body,
Yes.
A lot of expectations.
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So you're a teacher, right?
Yes.
So, what grade?
I teach high school,
Okay, you're in the thick of it.
11th and 12th grade. Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you notice there between the pressure put on girls or the pressure put on boys? The difference. I mean, I'm just
Well, I teach in a very urban district, so the boys kind of have a pressure of where they have to be the man.
Mm-hmm.
They have to, like my boy students, they have, pressures from their family and outside sources, like they have to be the man. They have to have the job. They have to take care
they're
of
the
their
provider and
Mhm.
girlfriend, or they have to take care of their family. They have to
That's
take
a lot
care.
of pressure on a high school kid to have
And,
swagger.
Yeah, and
That's a
so
lot.
they've got to have the cool car, they've got to have the job, they've got to throw the money out there, they've got to buy everything. And then like their girlfriend, if they buy them something, oh no, that's not cool because I take care of you, you don't take care of me. And then the girls, probably like high school girls, like it's very tough for them because they want to be independent and they want to have a job and have money and do things on their own, but like the expectation is that they should, especially like I teach predominantly Hispanic students, so the expectation in that culture is to be a mom and grow up and take care of the kids, and the boys take care of the girls. And as a senior teacher, I'm trying to get these kids like a career outside of high school. I'm trying to help them
Go to
move,
college.
like go
Yeah.
to college or go to trade school, go to the military, something to where, they don't end up in a box on the side of the road, like begging for change or whatever, because I work in downtown Dallas. So they see that every day and that's not what they want. So I'm trying, but a lot of these girls have to get past that mentality of like a man is going to take care of me, because as a society we're moving in a different direction from that. And it's like a kind of like a realization that like maybe I don't have to have somebody to take care of me, maybe I don't have to take care of somebody else. I try to teach them that they need to take care of themselves.
Yeah, and there's no reason, I mean, nothing wrong with marrying somebody that has a like-minded mentality that respects that independence. But I mean, it is changing, you're right. And cultural differences are huge. You
Yeah.
know, that's huge.
Right.
Definitely Hispanic has that kind of machismo,
But at the same time, our society is trying to teach boys that it's okay to be sensitive and to have emotions and to share your emotions. And
I think that's what my girls did for me, man. They, as you saw last time we talked, I don't have a problem crying.
yeah.
I cried at a Disney show, or a Pixar show.
My dad was the same way. My dad was totally the same way. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely not afraid to hide it. So.
Well, in a sense, we are, and then this goes with my students, like, they are the product of the environment that they grow up in. So if they see like divorced parents or their parents fighting and screaming at each other, the mom hitting the dad, or so on and so forth, then they think that that's what love is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
And I try to give my students as much uncomplicated love as I can, because sometimes they just don't get it at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I mean, that's all we can do. That's all we can do, really. I mean, there's big influencers on kids, and teachers are probably number 2 next to parents.
yeah, I agree.
Yep. I think, taking that back to writing a book, you were talking about, flying under the radar and also just like getting your story out there. Thinking about that peer pressure and trying to please everyone, because all day that's all we do. We are service mentality type people, where we go to a job to please somebody, a customer or a boss, whatever. We come home, we please our families. I think writing a story is like a total gift of self-love, to take everything that's in your brain that you love, a thought that you have like nurtured and said, wow, like that's a really cool thought. It's so cool. It's worth putting it on a piece of paper and like growing it into something, and like just finishing it and doing it before you go out there and try to get someone to tell you it's wrong.
It's important, because the reason why you fly under the radar is because they'll be asking you, hey, you finished that yet?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And all this pressure starts coming on you.
People
and
telling you they
telling
don't like your character development
right,
or how your story's going.
So, don't do it. Don't do it, because you'll get people rising up against you.
Yeah.
There's like 7 stories in there. Another one is about zombies, which is a metaphor for keeping the dead alive in your past,
Mhm.
things you forever regret, punish
Mhm.
yourself over and over again. It's like raising the dead over and over
It
again,
is, yeah.
and it will eventually make you like a zombie. You'll be tight and tense, and who's your posture's bad, and your face looks bad, and your eyes look bad. You become a zombie.
And then you're craving validation for that victim
And
mentality.
so what do? You go find somebody
Yeah.
else to tell the story to and make them feel bad.
Right,
Oh
yeah.
my
So it's
gosh,
like
totally.
eating their brain, right? So they're cool stories, but and back to the book thing. I mean, books are easy to write, man. If it's that kind of motivation,
Hmm.
hmm
not mine specifically, but it's pure.
Right.
And so my recommendation is I don't care if you self-publish, because today's world self-publishing is like recording your own audio
Yeah.
and
Which we do. Yeah.
releasing it.
Yeah.
People do that all the time now. They
Yeah.
don't need a big record company to
No.
go for it. And so get the thing down, and then I would say definitely if you self-publish, enter contest. I did enter contest, and I won multiple awards, and again, it's a little work, but it's fun.
Mhm.
It's fun, and once you kind of get the hang of it, it's
So
pretty
how
easy.
going in, you mentioned the contests. How do you find those contests, and how do you find the other resources that you need? Like you talked about the illustrators, that you can use the royalty-free websites, but how do you find editors? How do you find indexers?
Yeah. So fortunately, Google's made that pretty easy. But I searched for book indexers, and I
Mhm.
found this one person. She's called Sue the Indexer. That's what she calls herself. But I just searched and researched those entities. And I was going to make a list before I came over here, but there are so many options that I don't want to say this is the best one, because
Right,
you
right.
know. But if you just search for resources for the royalty free
Hmm.
images, indexers, etc., you'll find a lot of options there.
Okay.
And it's pretty available, and it's not too expensive either.
What's
Okay.
the indexer?
Copywriting, is easy to do. Also, you just go to the Copyright Office of the U.S. government and download a form and send it in, and you're done.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people say, and
I've actually done that.
I think this is true, that you just could put it in an envelope and mail it,
Mhm.
and never open the envelope, and it's got
Right.
a stamp on it, proves that you wrote this.
Right, right.
Some
Yeah.
people do that, but
It's not hard to fill out a copyright form.
no,
I've
it's not
done it
hard. It's easy.
a dozen times with manuscripts and songs and
Yep.
everything else. So
yeah,
yeah,
and editors, that's an important piece of it too, for
Right.
sure. You want somebody to read it, and somebody's not your friend that's going to tell you,
this sucks.
Yeah.
yeah, just an honest
Change this
person.
line.
And I kept having to get my editor kept making me tone it down to an 8th grade level,
Hmm.
and he said, that's where books need to be read by most people.
That's so sad.
I know. As a high school teacher,
it
yeah.
is.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
so
sad, but
sad.
yeah, and
Accessibility is important, though. Too.
That's true, because they want to
Especially
sell
when
more
it's
books.
something you
was-
want to motivate people with. Or
yeah, it was hard for me.
reach the masses. Yeah.
I'm not saying it was like way up there in the stratosphere, but there
Well, you're
were,
a smart guy. I mean, obviously,
there were words I had to remove because they were not common, disambiguate, or some word like that.
Yeah.
They didn't like, and so I had to take it down and make my sentences shorter,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, it's a real easy book to read. It's easy, you just whip right through it, and the message is still there, no matter what, if zombies or Michelangelo or
Right. Right.
miracles, in
Yeah.
Honduras or whatever. But and that's the important thing. And so I had to keep telling myself, well, if a dad's going to read this to a 8-year-old daughter, it needs to be easier to understand,
Easy
right?
enough for her to understand.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
So
as an English teacher, I do understand, but that just makes me sad hearing that they told you that you had to dumb down your book to an 8th grade level,
Yeah.
which I understand because I had a professor in college who had to, because when you're in doctorate, you have to publish or perish. And so to stick it to TWU, which is where I went to college, he published a science fiction book instead of what he should have published. So he ended up getting fired. But I bought the book. You know, he independently published it, and I bought it because he was probably my favorite professor. So Dr. Gowdy, if you're listening, I'm talking about your book. But it was the most intelligently written science fiction porn-like book that I had ever read, and it really took me it was a lot to get through it. And I was just like, I don't want my smut this well written. So I get where you're coming from, even though it makes me sad.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably, unfortunately, the minority of people that read that book because it probably is way above.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think I know one other person that read the book.
And that's unfortunate, but it was, kudos to him for being able to produce that kind of work, but it's still not appreciated on the level. It's like Bach,
Yeah.
Bach is unbelievable, intellectual, and, nobody listens to him.
Except my son.
Except me
And my son.
Others. I mean, there are others, but they're all intellectual, kind of mathematic type minded people,
Exactly,
et cetera.
my son.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
My daughter, at this age, at her age of 13, started listening to Bach.
Yeah.
She will maybe when she's older, but it's just, I don't know. That's probably not a great analogy, but anyway, that's one thing I had to keep in mind, and it really helped me. That editor helped me kind of see the light in this regard. So
I wanted to jump in really quick because you have mentioned an indexer multiple times, and I'm just curious what exactly would be the purpose of an indexer.
So in the back of a nonfiction book, especially
Nonfiction,
right?
Okay.
In the back
That
of there,
makes
you
sense.
see something that says Michelangelo, or
On page whatever.
yeah.
Oh,
So-
literally someone who does
Makes
the
the
index.
I actually
Yeah.
did
Okay.
that on Dad's textbook.
Oh,
years ago.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm
It's a-
thinking,
it's challenging.
It's a
and
very
then-
art.
Okay.
It's a high art. I mean, because it may be under Michelangelo, it may be under, multiple places,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
They may go looking at,
that
Cool
is
that
for
that's a
a
separate
person who
job.
really likes to organize
It
things.
is-
I'm
it-
like, that
it
sounds
is-
like a lot of fun, actually.
it is hard. It is a lot. I'm sure it's a lot of fun. It's tedious, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I have I think I'm one credit shy of a certification in technical writing, and I keep wanting to get that because it does sound fun to me to be able to do things like that for a book.
I know several people who do technical writing, and they're
Mhm.
And they make a
they're
lot of money
super
doing
smart
it.
people.
Yeah,
They're
they
super smart people. Yeah.
And they're not going to be very flowery with their words in technical writing.
yeah.
I've done that too. Hey, that dog's laying on his back over there. It's pretty cute.
Oh,
It's sneezing.
But anyway, in that kind of writing, it's very, very specific, right? It's no emotion,
Yeah.
So that's hard to do.
logic side
Yeah,
of the
it's
brain.
just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about self-publishing, and we were talking about formatting earlier. You're flipping the brain between right and left when you kind of change between business mode and formatting and creative mode. It's hard to do that,
Right.
and you'll derail yourself if you try to kind of do it all as you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
It seems like you have to do it, just one step at a time, concentrate
Yeah.
on that one thing. Yeah.
Sometimes my brain starts like doing this thing where it goes like in a bunch of different directions, and I'm like, just get the words out. Don't worry about if you spelled the word wrong, and just type.
Yeah, go back.
Because
That
my
is
brain
super-
thinks so
Self-edit,
much
yeah.
faster than I can type, and so I will come back and if it will be like, that makes no sense. It's my typing shorthand, and then I'll go in and I'll edit and respell the words
Yeah, that-
correctly
that-
and stuff.
that
But
happens.
That's
it's like,
exactly
I just
what I
gotta
tell
get
my
it out of my
students
head.
to do. Just get it out. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like going number 2 or something. You just got to get it out.
Yeah. I call it word vomit.
Yeah.
Word vomit. Yeah.
You have to do
I'm
that.
going to tell my students that you just have to go number 2. You just have to get it out.
I mean, just get it out and fix it later.
Yeah. When
Because if you're
nature
constantly
calls.
going backspace, because I misspelled that word,
Uh-huh.
Oh, that takes up so
it's
much
going to
time.
screw you
That
up.
perfect quote will just, poof, it's gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to get it down.
Sometimes I will actually use the dictation function in
Yeah.
Word, and I'll just dictate it.
Yeah.
It's a little weird because you have to say period, comma, new line.
I've done that before.
But if you just want to get it out, have a great thought here,
Skip that
just
formatting and
just get it, or
get the
use
words
like
out.
on your phone the voice recorder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just you're driving and you just want to, I got this idea.
Yeah, I do
Oh, I
that,
use that
all the time.
So when you between writing your book and then writing the comic book, how was the process? I mean, obviously they're 2 completely different formats. What other differences were there in that process?
Comic books are extremely complex. You don't really get that when you look at them, but they have it's a universe of its own, right?
Right.
And it's made me think about a lot of things. So, for example, in a comic book, if I'm flipping the page and the next page I'm running up to a clinic or something, or I'm in a clinic, I can't pop myself into the clinic without having a page showing me running to the clinic. It's like,
right.
so I started to notice in comic books and in movies, there was a shot that showed you where you were about to be, It is kind
of
Like
a
on
movie.
when you're reading a play. What are some of the plays like that you read? I remember reading Anne Frank as a play
Yeah.
in school, and it would say
I do
like,
that with my 8th graders.
stage left, and it would tell you like who all the characters are. So I'm thinking like when you're writing a comic book, you're kind of thinking in
You have
those
to think-
boxes of what
yeah.
you're gonna see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if the next scene is like in my book, there's a scene where I'm starting to morph into this alien as I'm looking into a mirror or something,
Mhm.
And then I'm found in an alien procedure, if I didn't have that scene of me morphing, it would just be weird. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
You have to get these transitional shots to let people know where you're going. So if I'm in a clinic, before I was at home, I got to show myself going to the clinic. Well, I started noticing movies do this all the time.
Mhm.
They'll do this big wide shot of a city, when you weren't in the city before, and then they zoom down in there, you're in the city. And so that's the way comic books are, which was very cool to me. But what else is different about them is they have this whole, I call it like a set of grammar rules or formatting rules around language.
Mhm.
So if I'm going to express something from the TV set, it's got a certain shape around it.
Oh yeah.
Different than if I'm thinking
that makes sense.
Oh yeah, because you have thought bubbles and you have
Yeah,
speech bubbles.
and,
Yeah,
you,
and then
and you
it's
have
like
broadcast balloons, which are
yeah,
like these.
yeah.
And if you start noticing it, when you read one next time, you'll start seeing what I'm talking about. And the different shapes and how they're kind of put. Those are rules that are fixed in place for comic books.
That makes
You
sense.
have to do
yeah.
it, and so it's a pretty cool world the way it's put together, and it's actually very intellectual. I'm pretty impressed with it.
So did you find your resources, because you had mentioned that you found people from Marvel and Disney that helped you with it. Did you find them in the same way or were they people that you already knew, or?
Well, no, Marvel and DC, not Disney.
That's right.
But law of attraction here. Let's go with that for a second. So I searched, and these are the people that came up to me, and I started looking at their portfolios,
Okay.
and I was blown away. One of them is the DC girl is the only quadriplegic letterer
Okay.
that's ever worked in the comic industry.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
She's in Canada. And it's just a good soul.
Power
right?
of positive thinking.
I
there.
never encountered a bad soul through this whole thing. It's like everybody was good.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, on the Marvel side, worked with Stan Lee some, and their work was just incredible. And when I told them the purpose of a mission, they loved it. Both of them loved it. And so, law of attraction, I totally think that's why I found those people.
Right. Well, and did you pay those people?
Yeah.
You paid them so they don't do they get royalties out of it, or?
I have told them that I'm going to give them royalties because I want to share that wealth. I want to share it with all of them. And there's another artist that my brother knew that did some of the images. So, if you look through that book, you'll see there's images that are kind of in the unreal world of dreams and mind.
Right.
Images that are kind of in the real static world of clinics and waiting rooms and then et cetera. Comic books have lots of people involved, by the way. Letters, do the lettering like I talked about, and you have sometimes the same person does pencils, inks, and then colors. And so in this case, I had two artists doing that. But yeah, I paid them, but I've also told them that, I'm going to give them royalties. So it's not, like I say, it's not, for me anyway, my personal approach is not, make a bunch of money. It's spread a message and
right.
And then money takes care of itself.
Right.
That's what I think anyway. So.
Okay. Do you have any other books that are currently in the works?
Well, interesting you asked that because I was just talking about one that I've been thinking about.
And you're trying to fly under the radar too, so.
The other day I was at my daughter's school. Well, first of all, I've worked in emergency rooms, healthcare IT also, and I've probably been to 1,000 emergency rooms in this country and every state except two. That would be South Dakota and Oregon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've been everywhere else. I've been to Patterson, New Jersey, seen some rough stuff, in some rough places, et cetera. Sad stuff too. I always, as an IT person, but we made a emergency department information system. So I would go there to make sure things were working okay or whatever. It was downtown Baylor one time and saw this cop and a armed robber guy who just robbed a Dunkin' Donuts, and they shot each other on the interstate.
Oh, wow.
They were rolled in next to each other. It was just so surreal to me. And then they were in this rooms separated by a curtain getting treated, and I was like, this is just...
That's crazy.
That's
It's just weird, right? So I've seen some stuff, but where was going with this story? What was your question? Let me see if
Do
I
you
can...
have any other books in the
Okay,
works?
so I started, and I worked with a lot of emergency nurses, and some of the stories they've told me about what they've seen in emergency rooms are hard to believe.
Right. Oh, I believe it. Yeah.
I mean, you see the best of humanity and the absolute worst of humanity in an emergency room. And so years ago, I thought, I'd like to kind of write a book that's kind of talking about what life is like for this kind of person. But then I started expanding it, and I was in my daughter's school the other day, and there was an encounter that happened between this girl and this boy. And she brought the girl in and sat her down and said, we're going to talk to him by himself and you by yourself and, make sure the stories align, right? Et cetera. And that girl was just, really frustrated and, messing with things everywhere that she could. And the person in the office kept having to take them away. And I thought, man, that's, every career has her own little weird a day in the life. So the book would be called A Day in the Life.
Okay.
Right? You have an emergency room nurse or a principal or a teacher. I mean, I don't care who it is. There are stories.
Oh, yeah.
Bankers,
I keep telling Amber when she retires, she needs to write a book. You know that book my dad says, she needs to write one that's like kids say,
I mean, it allows us to kind of get a vision into what it's like to be, a high school teacher, or what it's like to be an emergency nurse or a physician, and
Some of the crazy people that call into my call center.
Absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
customer service representative. There's some crazy stuff that happens, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, in that Baylor story I was telling you about, those doctors, the robber got shot more fatally, you know, and the last thing they did was massage his heart, which you crack the sternum, stick your hands in and squeeze it. And they walked out of there covered in blood, like paint, right? And taking their stuff off, you know, and talking about, what kind of pizza you want for lunch, you know?
Oh, wow.
It's just, you know, it's what they have to be, right?
Right.
And, but they did everything they could to save that guy, you know? That's what I mean by the best and worst of humanity, you know? But there's some stories I can't even say openly here, but they're just crazy. What, you know, some of the things I saw, but every field, I don't care, pilots, stewardesses, or what do they call them now?
Flight attendants.
Bank teller, hairdressers. Everybody's got the story, and I think it would be an interesting read.
That would be an interesting read. Yeah.
And then I want to write a fiction book too. I've been thinking about that, and that one I'm going to keep under the radar for
science fiction.
A little bit, yeah.
Because I know you talked about it a lot. I love
science fiction a lot. I do like it a lot. It's the prophecy of tomorrow.
Okay.
Don't you think?
I do. I've always talked about that. Science fiction is less about the science and more about
tomorrow.
Sociology. It's really sociology and psychology in a lot of ways. So back to something you opened up with, advice for aspiring authors or creators of any kind. You mentioned just finish it. Anything else that goes with that?
Well, your effort, again, I'm kind of restating some of what I said, but it has to be one of passion, you know, and because otherwise you never get through it because you're not dedicated to it. You know? Flying under the radar is huge, right? In fact, that may be as important as anything. Because people, I mean, you do have to have a confidant somewhere, you know,
right?
Your spouse or your partner or
best
friend, but not somebody, not social media,
right?
You know,
right?
Whatever, you know, you just don't want to broadcast that stuff, and you got to really believe that law of attraction thing that you mentioned is really true, and thought is the most powerful force in the universe.
Absolutely.
Everything comes from thought, right? And then it's spoken word, you know, speak things that are not as though they were, right?
Right.
You know, it's that kind of thing. But nothing that's before us here didn't start first with somebody thinking about it, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so we've got to believe those thoughts and think those thoughts and refine those thoughts and make them happen quietly.
All right.
You know.
Right. Well, John, thank you for coming again and recording with us. I've really enjoyed talking with you on both of these topics, and I hope we'll hear from you again sometime in the future.
Oh, I'd love it. I'd love
with more topics.
I'd love to come here.
I'd love to hear that.
This is a lot of fun. Hey, would you? I brought you a copy of my children's book.
Oh yes, yeah.
This book really highlights. So this was done when my daughter was in first grade.
Yes.
With her art class, right? And they made these giant posters of collage art. So this again goes back to the title because Super Stitches is the name of that cat.
Okay.
But if you go to the Amazon and look for that, you'll find a bunch of sewing books.
Oh, that's funny.
But anyway, it's a short read. And this really echoes kind of what I'm talking about society pulling you away from what's true. And do you mind reading that?
Reading the book
it's
out
very
loud?
Short, yeah.
Okay. Like right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think it really exemplifies what I'm saying about how we get tugged away from self-reliance.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
putting our, you know, this book is about that.
I tell you what, why don't you read the book for us? And then before you leave, I want to get a photo of us together with you and your book.
And when I order more copies, I'll bring you guys one.
Okay.
Too.
Okay.
I don't know if you knew this, but Kristen is about to go back to school to become an elementary art teacher. So,
Are you?
Yeah.
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 I love that. So this was done by her class. You know.
Oh, that's so cool.
And there were giant, collages and feathers and stuff, and
That's exactly up Kristen's alley.
Yeah, I know. When you said that, I was like, wait, what?
yeah. So so it's Super Stitches, 2 words, and then the subtitles, the Superstitious Beliefs of My Childhood Friends.
Okay.
I lived next door to Eileen. She feared the number 13. When she counted to 20, 11, 12, 14, on Friday 13, Eileen was not seen. When Eileen became a teenager, she just disappeared. She hid away in her secret place her entire 13th year. Across the street lived Tuck. He believed black cats were bad luck. Whenever he saw one, he turned the other way. I think that Tuck walked 10 miles a day. One time our city had a black cat parade. Did you know you run your fastest when you're feeling afraid? Around the corner lives Zach. Zach never steps on a crack. We kids thought he walked crazy, prancing one way then the other. Zach believed one misstep would break the back of his mother. When Zach grew older, I think he moved to France. I hear they have nice sidewalks there, and I hear they like to dance. In my 3rd grade class was Vera. At age 7, she broke a mirror. I didn't see her again until she was grown and 15. If she broke any more, she might never be seen. A mirror is amazing. Look, and it looks back. I bet it freaked out Vera, seeing her face all cracked. Now, it's fine to cross your fingers or hold a lucky jewel. If you find a 4-leaf clover, shout hooray, because that's cool. Carry that lucky coin or rock, feather, whatever you got. Wear your lucky necklace, but stinky socks, maybe not. Any of that good luck stuff, not the socks, but all the rest, is perfectly fine if it helps you. Hope for the very best. But if you forget your lucky coin or rock, or forget your lucky charm, if you lose your lucky feather, no need to feel alarmed. If you don't cross your fingers, it doesn't matter one bit. Say to yourself, that's okay. No need to throw a fit. I'm going to tell you a secret, and this is very true. None of that lucky stuff compares to the power inside you. The thoughts that you believe, those matter most of all. If you happen to break a mirror when feeding your pet fishes, get help and please don't cut yourself or you might need super stitches. And you never need to worry about stepping on any cracks. There is no 7 years of bad luck. There will be no broken backs. So think good thoughts and you will find, for you, no wall is too tall. If you try to think mostly good thoughts and expect the very best, your life will be stupendous, but your room might still be a mess. Those other thoughts, the dark ones that make you worried and all stressed out, do like you do with your stinky socks. Shove them underneath the couch. That's it.
Thank you. That was
Thank
awesome.
you.
That's awesome.
So you made me think of when I was in elementary school. I used to walk home, and the entire way home, I looked at the sidewalk so that I wouldn't step on a crack. And I just realized how much time I spent looking down instead of looking forward.
Yeah, that's a great
that's
great metaphor right there. I mean, a great analogy that, looking down instead of looking
Oh,
forward.
no, I'm handing you this because I want your autograph on that,
Okay.
please.
But it's, that's exactly right. Looking down instead of looking forward.
Yeah.
Or looking backwards instead of
Yeah.
looking forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's like, this is old wisdom and we just don't seem to ever learn it,
Yeah, we have to relearn it and teach it to each
Yeah.
Other.
It's
We have
funny
to
how
teach to
people
each other.
don't believe in it. That you mentioned the thoughts and that line from the Bible, and then it's ancient wisdom. It's like something that's been ingrained and passed down for
I mean, Aesop,
centuries, and
myths,
no
you
one
know,
still wants to believe that that's true.
Yeah.
Lot's wife
Positive
turned
thought.
to salt because she looked over her shoulder.
Yeah.
You know,
Even though she was
I mean,
told, don't look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was a Orpheus and Eurydice, or he looked back, at hell because he didn't think he was going to get his lover, and
Mm-hmm.
he lost her.
Yeah.
It's like, and zombies are the perfect metaphor for carrying the past around with you.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's dead. It's gone. It's done.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It'll eat
And
you alive.
And you gave it a lie. You gave it life again.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Anyway, I enjoyed this, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
yeah, we've really appreciated it. This is great. It's been great talking to you. Now, what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we are going to be talking about all things meditation.
Ooh, fun. That's one of my
Okay.
favorite topics. Something I love to do. All right. Well, you guys go check out our Heard It on the podcast. I will have links to John's books on Amazon and his bio. You can read all about it. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming back week after week. You can also leave us some feedback on the pod wherever you get your podcasts, or you can go over to MMC Chat, which you can access from our Facebook page, to join in the conversation yourself. And don't forget to give us some likes, give us some ratings, help us get the word out to everybody else, or send us an email at info@modernmusings.net.
Bye.
Bye.